All right, give me my next significant date for the American Renaissance.
1836.
1836, gorgeous. And why did we just say?
Because Ralph
Nature.
Waldo Emerson.
Ralph Waldo Emerson publishes Nature, which kicks off the party that we call what? Transcendentalism. Name for me a prominent transcendentalist.
Thoreau. Henry
David Thoreau, yes. We need to know him as significant for what two works? Walden, and what else?
And the Disobedience.
Right. What is referred to now commonly as civil disobedience, but the original title of this piece is Resistance to Civil Government. Tell me why this essay is important.
It is the most notable, piece of literature during that time.
Well, it's considered notable for its contribution to the abolitionist movement. Is it important now? Go ahead, Monte.
He wrote it because he was in jail for one night and that changed his life.
Right, he wrote this essay, right? Or it inspired him to write this essay. What is the quote in that essay that becomes significant even in the 20th century?
It is not just my right, but not just my right, but my duty to defy unjust laws.
It is not just right. It is not just my right, but my duty as an American to defy unjust laws. And we talked about that element, that sense of rebellion, that sense of defiance, as distinctly American, right? And, I was talking about Herman Cain this morning. I also feel that sense of defiance and, sense of rebellion in his approach to a campaign. And this appeals to people because it is essentially American. Okay. Poe dies in 1849, and a plethora of important things happen in the mid-19th century. Let's see, we got Poe dies. What important novel is published in 1850? The Scarlet Letter. Gorgeous. Who wrote it? Who wrote The Scarlet Letter? Oh,
Emily.
not quite. Be with me. Be with me. Anyone? Bueller? How about Hawthorne? Yes, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Nathaniel Hawthorne. What about 1851? What important novel was published in 1851? Moby Dick. Call me Ishmael, because Herman Melville publishes Moby Dick. And the reason why these two novels are significant is because they exemplify this main characteristic of the American Renaissance and the use of the imagination. And the emphasis on imagination means novels that employ the allegorical. And allegorical is just a fancy term for the symbolic. We usually use symbolism to speak of poetry, and allegory to speak of fiction. And these are most definitely fiction in these two novels. And allegorical. The white whale represents the wildness of nature, and Captain Ahab is every man trying to conquer the wildness of nature. In the Scarlet Letter, Hester Prynne is every man sort of fighting against, religious and majority hypocrisy. So you see how these items can be considered allegorical, right? These novels and their authors are significant because they are the paramount, what you might consider to be towering works of classic American fiction. Okay, so be sure that you know those two novels and their authors, and that they exemplify the main characteristic of the American Renaissance. Okay, then Dickinson also, and who else? What's the other poet that we read?
Whitman.
Whitman. Whitman we would consider a part of what movement? Transcendentalism. When we read Songs of Myself, I almost said Songs of Ourself. When we read Songs of Myself, you could not read these poems without seeing the imagery of nature, right? It's everywhere. And even like the human body and humankind considered as a part of nature, right? What about Dickinson? Well, as a part of the American Renaissance, yes, but it's kind of a trick question, because was she published a lot during her lifetime?
No.
No. She was published posthumously, and that's why, you know, she remains, you know, unclassified except for the aspect of the American Renaissance, and also quite innovative in the genre of poetry. So, there we go for the American Renaissance. It's everything you need to know between 1825 and 1865. Not comprehensive for history or literature by any means, but significant for what we need to know. Okay? The American Civil War starts when? 1861. And let me give you another piece of information about the American Civil War that you definitely need to know. And this is what we're going to talk about today. 1861 to 1865, the American Civil War. People usually focus on the issue of slavery as being, you know, the primary cause of the American Civil War, but there are other issues going on here. As territories were being annexed and then, you know, going through the ratification process to become states, the South was arguing, hey, you know, well, are these going to be slave states? You know, and the North is saying, no, they're not going to be slave states. We don't want the slavery we have now. You know, we're not going to admit Nebraska and Missouri as slave states. Are you crazy? And the South was like, hey, wait up there, big government. You know, states' rights here. And the United States of America, shouldn't these states be able to decide for their own whether or not they want to become slave states? Because, you know, this country prospers on being independent agriculturally. So our very economy depends on the expansion of the plantation economy. Pretty strong argument, huh? So listen, these are the items that contribute to the American Civil War. Slavery, yes. But parallel and concurrent issues, states' rights, yes. And this is important, you need to know it. Economics, yes, absolutely contribute to the American Civil War. Immigration, no, not a contributor to the American Civil War, okay? And that's what we've got established for a historical context in the majority of the 19th century. Let's get started with activities.